Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. I'm your host, Katie. Today on this minisode, we are going to be talking about Camp Damascus. I have it. Look at it. It's right here. As I break my candle. So if you are listening over on our podcast, make sure to tune in on YouTube. You can see my face sometimes, and we do have other things going on as well. You can subscribe over on our Amazon Live channel if you are into the spooky season. Make sure to check out our show notes if you're looking for the perfect spooky read. We have a ton over on darksideofthelibrary.com. Okay, that goes for my spiel today. That is the official one. All right, so let's talk about Camp Damascus. This is by Chuck Tingle. I'm just gonna read off the summary real fast to you and then tell you why I decided to pick this up and who Chuck Tingle is. So here is the publisher notes. We have welcome to Neverton, Montana, home to a God-fearing community, but they have a heart of gold. Bless your heart. I guess that's more of a southern thing. Anyway, so nestled up, way up in the mountains is what is the self-proclaimed most effective gay conversion camp called Camp Damascus. Here, there's a life free of sin, but the secret behind that success is anything but holy, and it'll scare you straight to hell. So I originally like the cover of this. Let me grab it officially without hopefully knocking over everything in my land. You can see the cover of this is really, really cool. You can see there's like bugs flying out of this person's mouth as like a mountain range-ish. It's really, really cool. So that was, of course, what caught my eye first. The description was fine. It wasn't something I was really excited to like pick up right away, but then I saw a ton of reviews over on Goodreads, some on Amazon, and of course Instagram, Book Talk, those places. People were raving about this book, so that kind of made it go a little higher on my TBR. But first, let me talk about who Chuck Tingle is. I actually ran into Chuck Tingle. I mean, I didn't personally, but like I was going to a bookstore. We go to this particular bookstore twice a year maybe. It's not that far, but it's just we have so many other ones close by. So I just happened to be book shopping, and I actually did pick up Camp Damascus. I was shocked that there was even copies left, because Chuck Tingle was doing just a speech. He was just hanging out there and talking, book signing, all that fun stuff that day. So I got to see him. It was funny because I saw this guy before he started. I was like, oh, there's this interesting guy who's got his head covered with this pink bag or like sack. And he had like sunglasses over the holes of his eyes. And I was like, this guy's kind of hysterical. I love it. And then my husband was like, oh, that's probably the author. Because we sat down to eat in this little food court and he happened to be speaking there. And sure enough, it's Chuck Tingle. And he's funny. Awesome, really cool. When I did stay, I loved learning about how he decided to create a monster, what it means to create some monsters in horror. Apparently Chuck Tingle is also he writes a lot of erotic novels. I learned that recently as well. And this is kind of his first horror adult fiction novel, LGBTQ, of course. Yeah, he's a lot of success with this particular novel. So now let me talk about my feelings towards this book. I actually rank this probably like maybe a high 2.5. Oh, so here's the problem. This book started so strong for me. I was so pumped. It really did. This book is amazing up front. And then it just devolved. And it made me so sad. So let me dive into that just a little bit for you. So just a trigger warning, there is a lot. I mean, this is about a gay conversion camp primarily and the effects, especially, I mean, this is a relevant book about, you know, the effects on the LGBTQ plus community. So this does deal with a lot of religious fundamentalism. There's abuse, parental neglect. I mean, just so many things that are associated with that. And then also there is like some gore, there's demons. So just be cautious. So here is some of my things with this novel. Let me just start with the good. First of all, like I said, this novel started out strong. This is not a spoiler, by the way, but I swear, like within 20 pages, our main protagonist is throwing up mayflies. It's gross. I was like, wow, we are hitting it and running with it. So I was really excited because the pacing was so fast in the beginning. I was very invested in Rose, our main character, why they're experiencing this phenomena. And Rose is also on the spectrum. She's very analytical, and she also is trying to figure out what is going on, what's happening with me. She starts to see things, starts like these really terrifying creatures, but they're humanoid, very disfigured and scary demons, and she doesn't get it, and things just kind of start to devolve really fast. People might die, just that kind of thing. But then as we progress in this novel, it becomes more of a monster hunting thing, and that was not what I was anticipating. I was kind of hoping for something a little more psychological in this regard, not take some of this stuff quite so literally. So that was a really strong point, was the beginning. Great, fantastic. The writing as well was very visual, visceral. I saw in my brain exactly the scene that was happening, or multiple scenes. Yeah, I was very invested in a lot of this. And then it just stopped. It started getting campy in Camp Damascus. I don't know, it just got a little not the same. Of course, I appreciate what Chuck is trying to do here. I think this is a relevant message. This is something that people still to this day deal with and have trauma. And I think everybody understanding those long-term effects, not just long-term, short-term effects, and how that, is as just a person-to-person experience. Treating somebody like that is absolutely horrible. And putting people in those positions is just insanity to me. So this book is very relevant. With all of this, and then, of course, Chuck Tingle's writing style, I think they're an amazing writer. I feel like they've nailed a lot of the experiences, and I really felt like I was there with the characters and having the same sorts of experiences or feelings. So I feel like they did a great job in that regard. But it just fell through. So without going into too many spoilers, eventually our main protagonist, Rose, realizes she's gay. I mean, that's the message here. And she's just forgotten all of those experiences that she had. She already did go to Camp Damascus and had all of these things. And she realizes there's a few things that trigger her into thinking she has already been to Camp Damascus. And those are those very blatant things like seeing demons again. The demons are there to basically say, you don't want to be gay. So she starts having these dreams and thoughts about a girl that may or may not have been real, but she has very, very clear emotional reaction. Definitely confusing for her because she knows, like, logically, especially like within her church, I shouldn't have these feelings towards a girl. I should want to be with a boy, but she doesn't, she's not really into that anyway. And she starts to fantasize about, just some girl they had this party, and she's, clearly feels an attraction to them. And she sees these demons every time those, like, thoughts start popping up. And a lot of this is just so blatant. It's a metaphor, but it's just like a big slap in the face. Like, you know what you're reading right now, right? Like, she's gay. It's just like, I feel like we could have eased into this a little bit and made it like less of this just big blatant sign of exactly what was happening. The book was fairly predictable. It becomes more of a monster hunting sort of novel. So because Rose is getting these visions of demons and now she's like, I don't want to see this anymore. And who would? The demons are actually real. They're not this thing where she's created in her head and then the camp has like somehow, put this in her brain that she's seeing demons every time she has these thoughts. They are real. So this ends up being a demon hunting sort of novel. Like, why do they have demons now? And it just, I feel like honestly that kind of ruined the whole vibe of the book, because now it became like a Ghostbusters thing where it's like, all right, we're going to strap up, gear up. We're going to kill these demons now. We're going to research demons. How do you kill a demon? Who is this demon? Just all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I was kind of hoping, because in the very beginning, this is more about like Rose and her inner feelings and seeing demons and how they're haunting her. And she's even like, throwing up mayflies, just all of this stuff. And that was really grotesque. And that too is a metaphor, but I feel like we could have leaned more into that sort of thing. And then it became a monster hunting Van Helsing novel. And I was like, okay. Anyway, and then when it does take that turn, it feels like I'm just not as invested in Rose anymore. In fact, as we progress through the novel, this feels less and less like an adult novel and more like a YA novel. So that's another reason why I gave this book a lower rating, because this was published as an adult horror novel, and this totally reads like a YA novel. And if it was YA, I probably would have given it like a 3.5. As we go through the book, we start accumulating a little more characters, and I don't feel a connection to really anybody. Even Rose in the beginning, I actually felt pretty drawn to, but after a while, I'm just like, okay, honestly, all you want to do is just feel okay kissing a girl at this point. It just felt really surface level. I was just really confused. And then on the flip side, we have a ton of characters in the very beginning that just get lost. Like, some things happen to them and then it doesn't even matter anymore. Big stuff too. And they're just left like, oh yeah, that happened to so-and-so. Oh well, we're gonna forget about them. It felt incomplete. So as somebody that has gone through my own experience like this, I grew up in a fairly fundamental household when I was a child, and I had a lot of confusion about my sexuality for a really long time. And this isn't my parents' fault, but in the intro of this novel, and just kind of those demons that you are working through, and not really demons, there's nothing wrong with you, but it's just like working through a lot of that stuff in general, and then on top of it, making like actual terrifying experience like Chuck Tingle did in the very beginning. That really drew me in. I really felt like this was a great visual representation of some of the experiences that the queer community does go through, even if you've never done a gay conversion camp, but just like fighting some of those feelings, because even if you never did go to a camp like that, those messages are thrown onto you so early on, like these things are bad. And it's hard. It's hard to deal with. And it, those things, just even if you've conquered some of that stuff, it will crawl back into your life, unexpectedly, when you think, okay, I've got this. I am who I am, and you love yourself. It still crawls in there sometimes. So I wish that maybe that was leaned into more, because the visuals and the dread and the spook factor there was excellent, including just how he described the demons too, even in parts of the monster hunting and even in parts of describing Camp Damascus. Those parts describing some of the horrors there was really great. but just the execution felt lacking, and the characters themselves felt really stereotypical, and it felt more like a YA novel. They didn't have as much complexity as I wanted them to, and then it kind of ended a little silly. And then Rose's character just kind of got lost, it felt like to me. So this is why I give this about a 2.5, unfortunately. And I think I am an outlier here. I know a lot of people really love this book. So if this is kind of up your alley, check this out. I know I'm going to be checking out another book that's kind of in a similar vein. It seems like the Boys in the Valley book. That one also got a lot of hype. So hopefully I'm not an outlier there too. So check out Camp Damascus. I am really curious about your thoughts on this. Make sure to comment here on YouTube. If you are listening on a podcast episode, join us on Instagram, on, of course, YouTube and Facebook. And just a reminder, if you do like a lot of these novels, check out our show notes. We do have affiliate links there, but those small purchases really do help us out, and it helps this podcast out. And we love curating books for you. It's a lot of fun, and we want to keep doing it. Make sure to join our Amazon Live channel at amazon.com/live/darksideofthelibrary for other spooky horror-oriented things like games, decorations, outdoor garden stuff. And make sure to spread this podcast to your friends, family, loved ones, all of that. Thanks so much for listening. Have a spooktacular week.